Indie News Network, collaborative family of independent content creators. Co-hosted normally by me, Indy. I'm founder and editor of Indie Left News and Indie Media Today. I got Reef Breland sitting next to me.
At Kennedy News.
Is Andrew Rivera. I'm the Handsome Cynic.
It's Politics and Survival.
My name is Jesse Jett.
It's American Tradition.
What's up, Space Monkeys? Welcome to Political Fight Club. I'm Robert Durden.
I mostly make art for INN.
Big Man Crab Joe. Keep up those great videos.
Hey guys, it's Yeti coming at you.
Hello, my name is Lucy from Blue Moon Red Wine.
This is Chris Legion.
Keep fighting that good fight out there, guys. I'll talk to you later.
Who are these people?
Who are these people? I don't even know. Hi, my friends, and welcome. I'm very excited. This is the first of what will hopefully be many episode shows where we bring together people from antiwar.com and INN in a collaborative effort to discuss what's happening in Palestine, hopefully bring some awareness, bring some things that you can take action on, and just have an open and honest conversation from kind of different political ideologies. Obviously, the folks over at antiwar.com are, generally speaking, libertarian, and then obviously my pals at INN are more on the leftist side of the spectrum, and I'm kind of a floater. I just float. I don't really have a team here, so I'm very excited to be here. I'm very excited to have a chat. We have a chat on TNT, but I don't really pay attention to it. You guys know I'm very terrible at that, but I'm very excited to see all of you guys in the chat. So thanks for being here. So joining me is Kyle Anzalone. You know him, you love him. If you've been paying attention to my shows at all, he's on regularly. He writes for both antiwar.com as well as the Libertarian Institute, which, by the way, the Libertarian Institute is in the middle of its winter fundraising effort. So if you are interested, I'm not a libertarian, but I love the work that they do over there. They publish books. They have a ton of great writers. So go over, check it out. It's libertarianinstitute.org. And then if you feel so inclined, please make a donation. Again, they do great work over there. And also my INN buddy, Colin Reddix Carter, who does great stuff over at INN, co-hosts with Reef, and does a lot of great work, and is also a teacher and does a lot of advocacy and activism there as well. So, all right. Hi, fellas. How's it going? Thanks for being here.
Good. How are you?
I'm tired.
Yes.
Thanks for having me, Misty.
Yeah, I'm excited that we're doing this. This is great. I think that it's a great opportunity, I think, to like have a collaborative effort here. So there are several things that we wanted to talk about tonight. The first of which I wanted to bring up was ridiculous House of Representatives vote, which equates anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism. I'm sure most of you have heard about this already. Let me pull up. Sorry, it's been a while since I've used Restream or any of this shit, so I might be a little rusty here. Did that pull up? No? Yes?
There you go. Yes.
Good. All right. So House of Representatives just voted to pass a resolution which equates anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism. Pisses me off, guys. 412 yes votes. One lone soldier out there, Thomas Massie, we'll talk about it. I think his position is still weak, but he is at least consistent on the topic of free speech. And then what the fuck is Rashida Tlaib doing, y'all? Y'all, what is she doing? President?
This bothered me to no end. And I actually made a comment on Twitter that actually has been getting a lot of traction, that I'm confused by this from Rashida Tlaib. Although a lot of people did say, which I can agree with, she probably was threatened to do a present vote, which I could see. But at the same time, I'm also kind of like, you're a constituent, you represent one of the biggest Arab communities in the country. And the fact that
she is Palestinian, Colin.
Right. I mean, just on a basic level, you're a Palestinian.
Yeah.
And then, so it just kind of shows. I'm just really frustrated because for people who I've been hearing online basically saying, we have to vote for Biden because we're going to lose our democracy. This is not it. And And just notice how, and I don't want to hear the squad saying, "Oh, I want a ceasefire. We demand a ceasefire," and then you're making a yes vote on this. Like, I don't want to hear it. So it's and even so, Rashida, if like we don't know, but if you were threatened,
I don't care.
Say something. You know, who threatened
I don't care, Colin. I don't care. Because several people have come at me on Twitter with that. Well, they were probably, I don't care. That it's not an excuse for your cowardice.
Right.
It's just not. I'm not willing to accept that. I mean, people try to use that same excuse with AOC and the Iron Dome. I don't give a fuck if you were threatened. This is bigger than you and whatever political ambitions you have or whatever. I mean, this is literal genocide. And if you can't speak up against it now,
well,
good are you?
It's been, we've been seeing this for the last few years with the squad, that they will say the right stuff when they need to, but when they really need to show some courage, they back out. So obviously, you know, this is on par for the course for them, but they haven't had the experience where they really had to step up to the plate and show that power that they had. So I don't know why I was surprised, you know.
I was not.
But at the same time, it's still kind of disappointing to hear, like, you know, again, it's the idea of like, I call for a ceasefire and you've been making that call at least publicly, but then to kind of go against that and make this yes vote but I think ultimately this just kind of shows, and I talked about this with Reef last week, and it really kind of hit me, like, how powerful the Israeli lobby is and how and they're all organized as hell. Like, they've been at this really for the past 100 years. So, like, they're extremely organized and they're extremely rich and they're extremely powerful. And they run Congress. And it's very evident. They fucking run Congress. So how can you call what we have a democracy when we have probably one of the big, if not the biggest lobby in this country and in the world, having our politicians this corrupted that they'll do this resolution? And so it's, I don't know, it's just really
Kyle, what did you think about Thomas Massie?
So good on Massie for casting the vote he cast. I know some of his statements aren't as strong as we would like them to be on this issue. I guess I do give him a little bit of a break because he's constantly labeled the anti-Semite of the week and ridiculous things like that by these pro-Israeli lobbying groups. And so to moderate his position a little bit, to maybe take off some of the heat from the anti-Semitism charges, I get it. I don't like it. I understand it's kind of a result of American politics. And look, I think, you know, on the question of Tlaib and members of the squad voting here, it kind of shows why what we're doing here is so important, right? Because if you have Tlaib in the squad voting no on this along with Massie, then they kind of protect each other, right? If Massie is voting no on this, then, you know, you can't look at these, you know, women of color and say, all of you are terrorists. Well, they could point to and say, like, no, why did Thomas Massie vote for it? Maybe because this is a principled or pro free speech stance, where, you know, Massie could have kind of that same coverage from the woke attacks, although I know it doesn't work as well with Israel and the anti-Semitism charges like it would if it was a different kind of ism attack. But, you know, you kind of do get that protection when you have these like broad coalitions willing to stand together on these issues. And so, you know, it's disappointing that it's 412 to 1, but also doesn't that show the importance of them having a consensus and how afraid they are of these kind of coalitions, that they worked so hard to make sure Tlaib, our Omar, our Bush, our AOC didn't vote along with Massie here and give that edge to them, you know, and so, because it doesn't matter, right? It was going to pass. If it was 411 to 2, it doesn't in any way impact the vote and if this law ends up passing or not. What it impacts is the conversation around the law, and you know, having people on both sides voting for it means you can't fling the kind of really low quality attacks against them that you usually see. And so disappointing, but not particularly surprised, I guess. And you know, I do feel bad, particularly for Tlaib, because you know she is a Palestinian woman who, if she votes, you know, probably her conscience here, she's gonna be called a terrorist, and that's
being called a terrorist
really
anyway.
I know. I'm just saying, like, I have a little bit of sympathy, but
no,
at
I
the
get
same
it.
time, you know, you're a congresswoman, you know, no matter what has happened prior in your life, you are one of the most powerful people in the country now, and so you do have to stand up on it.
Right. But I would say again, and Missy, you said this, like if the squad has actually been doing the work and making these moves as far as pushing against Congress all this time, this wouldn't be an issue. But the fact that they manipulate every single time when we have pushed them, like force the vote and like all these other things, they've just kind of gone chicken shit and run the other way. And so now it's kind of like, again, it's not surprising, but we did not put you in Congress to vote alongside your colleagues. We put you in Congress to vote to make that challenge against Congress.
Yeah. Okay. Hold on. We need to remember, because this pisses me off every single time. The whole point behind the squad, the entire reason that they were put into Congress, was to challenge the Democratic Party establishment, not Republicans. That was the whole point. That was their whole shtick, right? They were coming out of the Bernie campaign. We all got screwed over. Everybody was pissed off about it. The Democratic Party was obviously corrupt. WikiLeaks exposed that, laid it bare for everyone to see. And the squad was meant to go into Congress and challenge the Democratic Party. We're going to make the Democratic Party a party of the people again, right? That's their whole thing. We're going to reform the Democratic Party. How's that going? It's not. The Democratic Party is worse than it's ever been. And they have not done a single thing, not a single thing, to stand up to the Democratic Party establishment. And in fact, they, as Colin just said, they capitulate at every turn. So I understand the sympathy that people might feel for Rashida Tlaib. It's obviously very difficult to have the courage of your convictions when you're under that amount of pressure. But again, it's genocide. If you don't have the balls to speak up against genocide, then you are useless. There's absolutely no use for you whatsoever. And especially, it's just weird to me that of all people, Rashida Tlaib cannot speak out against the genocide of her own people on a vote like this. And it's not even just about the fact that Israel is committing a genocide. It's also a free speech issue. This is conflating criticism of a government with hate speech, which is absurd on every level. And so that obviously that aspect troubles me. And with Thomas Massie, he said, I agree with the title reaffirming the state of Israel's right to exist. I'm going to say it. Israel doesn't have a right to exist, period. Period. Come for me. I don't care. And any right they may have had to exist on some level at any point in history, they have completely given it away. It's done. It's done. If you cannot conduct yourself in a manner that is compatible with humanity, and you can't manage to exist without committing a genocide, you forfeit your right to exist, in my opinion. So people will come for me for that. I don't care. They don't have a right to exist, period. And then he continues, and much of the language, but I'm voting no on the resolution because it equates anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism is deplorable. Yes, everybody agrees. But expanding it to include criticism of Israel is not helpful. And I agree with him there. Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm just more worried because this is a resolution, so this is basically symbolic.
Yeah.
It really doesn't mean, well,
but it does.
It doesn't mean a whole lot, but I'm just kind of wondering what can this lead to moving forward in terms of, basically everyone's voting for this. We know how powerful AIPAC is. Like, what is the potential moving forward, especially like if this war continues into 2024 and beyond, what are the implications for? So I think we're kind of heading in this slippery slope here. And obviously Tlaib has been censured. So I'm just more concerned about what this means for the rest of us. Like, screw Congress, like, they'll be fine. But like, what about the rest of us on the ground, especially given protests, especially given basically the state of how angst people are right now? Like, what does that mean for us ultimately in light of this resolution moving forward?
Yeah.
Well, I think one of the paths this really leads down in, I think the equating anti-Semitism with anti-Israel sentiment is one of the definitions of like the Holocaust Museum that they've really been trying to push in the US and codify that into law. And it has been in some states when it comes to like the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement. And what they have are the anti-BDS laws. I mean, as bad as some of the Democrats are, Ron DeSantis actually went to Israel to sign a law that restricted the rights of the Florida citizens to speak out and boycott the state of Israel. It's just insane how far they've gone on some of these issues. And so, when Congress passes this, it gives more cover for more laws like that, even if they typically end up enforced at the state level. And I mean, those laws are a big deal, especially if they start to, identify protesters or things like that and say that, this person has this kind of contract with the state government, so now their business loses it. Any kind of state employees, even the garbage collectors in a lot of places, police, firemen, teachers, all, I know in Texas, there was a speech pathologist that worked for a school, and she lost her job over her they essentially tried to force her to sign a loyalty pledge to the state of Israel, saying that you have to support the state of Israel if you want to be a speech pathologist at public schools in Texas. And so that's like the level of thought control they're going for here. It's really dangerous. And because not everybody could be as fortunate as I am, where I am able to do this for a living. So I do feel like I could speak out, because they can take away my main source of income, because that comes from antiwar.com, and antiwar.com isn't going to fire me for saying that Israel's committing an ethnic cleansing campaign in Gaza if it's the truth. So
100%. And I've had people contact TNT trying to get me fired.
Right.
I'm not joking.
I will say that's something, and I've said this online, that I'm actually worried about, because I will preface saying I have no issues with Judaism at all as a religion. I have an issue with Zionism, and I call that out all the time. And I am worried because Zionism and Judaism are more interchangeable. Like, if I continue calling out Zionism, that would affect my job. Like, that's why I am actually high key kind of concerned about. I don't want to lose my job on account of what I deem as truth. And then, especially given the children that I serve, I have served Arab/Palestinian children in the past. And I'm thinking about, look, obviously, I care about my Jewish students, but I also have to care for my Arab students too. So what does that say? That we can't have a conversation in terms of, this is such, it's not, to me, not that complicated. People make it more complicated than it needs to be, but it's messy. But if we're not going to be willing to have those honest conversations as to why people have an issue with Zionism versus the religion, and being able to separate the two, that's when we're going to have a problem.
And that's why I think, honestly, and I've had people get mad at me for saying this. I'm used to that. That's fine. But in my opinion, the single most powerful voice right now is the anti-Zionist Jewish voice. And I'm not saying that to diminish the voice of Palestinians. Very clearly, they can and have been standing up for themselves for decades. But in my opinion, in the fight against Zionism, which is what this really is, what it boils down to, is the anti-Zionist Jewish voice. And we have Jewish Voices for Peace out there, Norman Finkelstein, Max Blumenthal, Alexander Rubinstein. There's a whole host of people out there, millions of Jewish people around the world who are anti-Zionist for good reason. But what they've tried to do, as what you just spoke to, Colin, is that they've tried to equate the two. And Zionism is not Judaism. Zionism is a political ideology. Judaism is a thousands-year-old religion. They are not the same thing. And in fact, Zionism was created by people who weren't particularly Jewish.
No, they were atheists.
Yeah. I mean, Netanyahu is not particularly religious. He's not. I mean, it's just a reality. And it really, what it boils down to is just power, control, resources, all of that stuff. And that's what it always is, right? It's never about what they claim it is. It's never about, in Ukraine, it was never about sovereignty or humanity or democracy. And it's not in Israel either. It's always about power, control, money, and resources. So I just think that we have to refuse to let that equation be made. Like, you cannot. That's why I push so hard against it, and that's why I will very forcibly speak to the fact that Zionism is not Judaism. It's disgusting to me that they try to equate those two things, because I am myself an atheist. But I have no issue with any religion. I mean, as long as you don't try to influence my life with your religion, we have no issues. You know what I mean? I don't care. Do your thing. And in fact, I will fight to the death for your right to practice your religion. But Zionism is not a religion. It's a political ideology. And I refuse. I refuse. I will die on that hill every day of the week, all day long. Okay. So we mentioned that DeSantis went to Israel, to visit. Elon Musk also went recently, and I wanted to get your guys' take on that, because as we're talking about the conflation of Zionism and anti-Semitism, Elon Musk has now tweeted out that he's going to start censoring people for certain words and phrases. From the river to the sea was one. What was the other one? Oh, decolonization.
Oh, God.
Okay.
I mean, what? So Mr. Free Speech is at it again. What do you guys think? What do you think, Kyle?
So you obviously not surprised. And Misty, I believe the week that Musk was either buying or bought Twitter, I was on your show, and I had written an article that week about how SpaceX had just signed some kind of contract with the Department of Defense. And so, this guy was always a government contractor. And so he's going to do what the U.S. government really wants and needs him to do at the end of the day. I mean, look, maybe he is a little bit more of an independent mind than some of the people in our society. I mean, he is, like, I guess, compare him to Bill Gates, then yeah, maybe you do get a little bit more diversity of thought. But in reality, I mean, he's a Pentagon contractor and behaves as such. No surprise that he ends up going to Israel and taking these steps. And Missy, it's just amazing, right? Where you had the Israel slogans, Hamas is using human shields, Israel has a right to defend itself, Hamas is a terrorist group. And you can say all those things, even though they really just mean Israel gets to kill as many Palestinian children as they want. That's all it means to say Israel has a right to defend themselves. Is that anybody saying that on October 7th was either stupid or just wanted to give Israel cover, right? Because I knew that saying Israel has a right to defend itself means Israel's going to carry out a massive bombing campaign in Gaza and kill thousands of children, which is exactly what's happened. I mean, as bad as it's been, I didn't think it was going to kill more civilians than the war of Ukraine in 2 years in the first 2 months. Yeah. I mean, the bombing campaign has been horrific and people should be shot. And some people have been shot and kind of awakened on the issue. But, this is just the kind of censorship and narrative control they want, where, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. It's a chant, right? It's not a well-articulated policy. Like, some people pretend like that's the entirety of the Palestinian policy. Well, what do you think it means from the river to the sea? Well, it's a chant, all right? It's what you say when you're standing around outside. It's not actually, we want to cleanse that region of all the Israelis. That's not what they're saying. That's just what you infer from a bunch of people chanting because you're stupid. So, it's just making sure one half of the narrative is censored and the other people can say whatever they want. And, it gives people the impression that there's something really wrong with Hamas and that, they're somehow uniquely bad on this side. And look, Hamas and some of the people in Palestine, particularly some of the people in Gaza, have said some atrocious things about Israelis. But the Israelis and particularly the Israeli government say atrocious things about Palestinians all the time. They have talked about nuking Gaza, burning Gaza to the ground. The finance minister just said 2 million people living in the West Bank are Nazis.
Here's a whole ass thread. Here's a whole ass thread.
And as we talked about earlier this week, Misty, Israelis go and sit on lawn chairs like Americans on the 4th of July and watch bombing campaigns of Gaza and celebrate and whoop like it's, the greatest Israeli celebration ever. And so, yeah, sure, there's a lot of hatred on each side here, and that is awful. And, those kind of saying shouldn't be like amplified or something like that. But to only censor one side of it is just narrative control.
100%. And Kyle's absolutely right. If you don't believe him, go look up the city of Sderot. I think it's called Sderot. I think I'm probably mispronouncing and I apologize. Actually, I don't. But they literally, I think it was in 2014, a bunch of Israelis took their lawn chairs out to this hill overlooking Gaza and plopped down like they were at a fireworks display to watch Gaza get bombed. That's what we're dealing with. You know what I'm saying? And of course, there's hatred on both sides. That's not surprising. I think that I'm obviously a little bit more sympathetic to Palestinian hatred of Israelis because, you know, that's the occupying force. That's reality. I mean, the whole Israel has a right to defend itself. No, they don't. Palestine has a right to defend itself. Israel is the occupying force here. This is just reality. There's nothing anti-Semitic about facts. That's facts. And so it's very frustrating to me that, and you're right. I mean, listen, I have this thread pulled up here that I made. It's unbelievably long. And it is a literal shit ton of Israeli officials and their various proxies calling for genocide or ethnic cleansing. It is a long ass thread. This is fine, but from the river to the sea is not okay. What do you think, Colin?
I mean, I spoke about this on INN News, and I think the issue that I have with it is anything that is said, you have to, and I have to put on my teacher hat for a second, but like, if you're learning history, there's always at least two ideas of things. So when we hear the river to the sea, you know, obviously from an Israeli, they're going to hear it as one thing. How does a Palestinian interpret that? And that's why we're not asking, you know, Palestinian voices have been suppressed in the space and just in media in general, because they don't want to have the idea. And a lot of people know, and that's the thing. And that's where the frustration is. A lot people can go online and look up the history regarding how Israel came to be. That's no secret. And people know. But the problem is the Israel lobby is trying to do its job to try and quench that so that, you know, they can overtake and do whatever they want. I just think it's kind of abhorrent that, you know, like for Palestinians saying from the river to the sea is a problem, but a settler in the West Bank can say from the Euphrates to the Nile. That's okay. And that's the same shit. And they mean something different compared to when a Palestinian says from the river to the sea. So it's just a form of censorship, which I do not support at all. And you're not asking the people who this pertains to what that means for them. And whatever it means to them, that's what you should hold on to, not your own opinion based on the doctrinization that you
well, even Palestinians aren't a monolith. Some of them, I'm sure that they have a lot of hatred and rage, and maybe they do mean something a little bit more extreme. But I think generally speaking, and I don't mean to speak for Palestinians here, don't come for me, but I think generally speaking, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free just means that everybody from the river to the sea will be free, period.
Right. And we have what here from sea to shining sea, here.
Right?
You know, like, and what have we done with that? You know, like, I mean, just given our own history in this country, like,
yeah,
you know, so it's just a form of censorship, and I think all of us here are totally not for that. But it's just a way to kind of control the narrative, but they're able to kind of get away with what they truly want to do within the region. And so, you know, I personally do not stand for that, and I will defend anybody, you know, who is looking for liberation. And that's what we've talked about a lot on INN News over the last few weeks, the difference between liberation and peace. Palestinians want liberation, meaning that they want to have self-efficiency of what they want. You can have peace. I can have peace right now, you know, given my situation, but you, Mr. Oyukan, may not have that peace, you know? So peace can be very subjective depending who it is.
Yeah.
So what Palestinians want, and that's what is scaring Israelis, is that they want liberation. They want to be self-sufficient away from Israel and be able to take on, you know, the fact that there are oil rigs out like off the coast of Gaza, like they have their natural resources that Israel is basically trying.
I mean, they don't want to
them.
live in a concentration camp. They don't want to have their children kidnapped by the hundreds every single year. They don't want to have snipers taking out their legs on a daily basis. They want to have access to food and not have their food restricted. Israel was restricting food. They actually did a study to find out what the caloric intake was to just keep somebody alive. And then that's what they were allowing Palestinians to have. That's atrocious. And I think any one of us, and that's what's so frustrating about all these ridiculous people in the West who sit in the comfort of their own home and want to criticize Hamas or criticize Palestinians for the way that they choose to resist their occupation. Who the fuck do you think you are? Who the fuck do you think you are? I have no room to judge what Hamas is doing or what. Do I love when innocent civilians get caught in the crossfire of a situation like this? Of course not. I don't want Israelis to get hurt either. But I also know that if I were in Gaza right now and I were living under those conditions and I had to fear for my children, I would fucking fight back. I think most of us would. And it makes me angry when people think that they get to sit on their couch in their comfortable living room in their air conditioning and wag their finger at Hamas and what the Palestinians are doing in the fight for their freedom. That's absurd. Shut the fuck up. You don't get to have an opinion. I'm sorry, you just do not. Do I wish that things could happen peacefully? Do I wish that there was some sort of a political solution? There's just not. Palestinians have been trying for that for decades.
That has happened. That's the Palestinians have tried to be
for decades.
For decades, and Israel is like, nah.
Yeah.
So.
How much do they have to take? Seriously. Right. That's a genuine question. So, how much do you expect the people of Gaza to take?
Right.
Real talk.
Well, I think that's what they want. Is basically like, shut up and let us destroy you, and so we can conquer you.
Yeah.
That's really what they want.
Yeah. Yes.
And Misty, I think your point should really go double for all of the American conservatives who, spend all their time talking about how they need their guns in case the government ever comes and tries to take them or take away their rights or their property. And that's exactly what's happening to the Palestinians. I mean, I know libertarians who have told me that they need their guns to fight our government in case it goes tyrannical. And then we'll sit there and say, well, the Palestinians really shouldn't be firing indiscriminate rockets into Israel.
Right.
And that's not an appropriate way to resist oppression, all that. And it's like, you said that you would shoot any cop that came to your door to take your guns. And then you're going to tell these people that they can't shoot back at the people who put them in a massive open air prison, who don't let their children go get cancer treatment. Did you know that all the Gazan cancer patients that were at the hospital in East Jerusalem were rounded up and arrested and sent into the West Bank where they don't have access to cancer treatment?
Yeah.
Like they treat these people in a way that we wouldn't allow people to treat animals in this country.
Legit.
You know what I mean? If somebody was treating a dog or a cat this way, not even your dog or cat, just a dog or cat, you would
a stray dog or cat
sick to their stomach about seeing this kind of stuff. And they just do it to the Israelis and our Palestinians and openly talk about it. And everybody just goes, well, there's terrorism. So
Israel's the right to defend itself. No, they don't.
Right.
No, they don't. They absolutely do not. I'm sorry. They don't. If you don't want Hamas to fire indiscriminate rockets into your land, maybe stop brutalizing their people. I mean, have you tried that? Have you tried letting them out of the concentration camp? Have you tried letting them have access to food and their own resources? Have you tried letting them leave to get cancer treatment? Have you tried not kidnapping their children by the hundreds every single year? I mean, we've heard all this talk over the past couple of months about how dare Hamas take children as hostages. Where the fuck have you been for the past 7+ decades, where they have been arresting and holding children in indefinite detention by the hundreds every single year? You had nothing to say about that. It's crazy. It's really crazy how it only goes one way. There's a whole lot of double standards going on, and it drives me fucking mental. I hate it, and the hypocrisy drives. And I'm so glad you brought up the conservatives, because it's much better coming from you than from me. But
that's why I did it. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. The crazy hypocrisy that it takes to wag your finger at Hamas and the people of Gaza for fighting back against unbelievable brutality. I mean, we're only touching this is just surface level, the things that they've had to go through. I mean, the history here is horrific, and I forget who it was, but somebody tweeted out something about I hope the adults of Israel and Palestine know what they're forcing these kids to go through. And y'all, the adults of Gaza know that's why they're fighting. They absolutely understand what is at stake here. They are former kids of Gaza, and they were born to kids of Gaza. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, this is a generational thing that they have been dealing with, and they understand what's at stake. And I wouldn't want my kids growing up in a concentration camp. I don't know about y'all, but I have no desire whatsoever to allow that to happen to my kids. And so it's just very weird to me that people aren't able to, I think it's a lot to do with the dehumanization. It's a lot to do with racism. I mean, you know what I mean? I think that's a lot of it, but it's just very frustrating to watch people living very comfortable lives wag their fingers at those who are being unbelievably oppressed. I mean, this is some of the most horrific treatment that any one group of people has had to deal with. So, okay, let's shift gears. Let's talk about, do we want to talk about Chucky the Shoom next? Chucky the Shoom.
I mean, not particularly. I mean, he gave his whatever speech that was it yesterday?
Yeah, the anti-Semitism speech.
Look,
we already kind of touched on it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say too much on it. And to be fair, I only watched maybe the first 10 minutes of it.
That's
and I'm
probably
like,
all you need.
That's probably like it. Yeah, I mean, it could have been 10 minutes. It went like 40. But like, I don't want to hear, and he, no credit, but he kind of mentioned Islamophobia and like the free Palestinian American teens who were shot in Vermont over the weekend. He did mention that in passing, but then he just kind of went in his tirade against, people that we've been struggling as Jewish people, we've struggled and just this song, like, cry me a fucking river. Like, look, here's the thing. I get what the Jews went through. I think as far as the Holocaust, look, I had to learn the Holocaust. I think we all had to learn the Holocaust up the ass when we were in school, right? But the fact that, like, you can't necessarily recognize the idea, like, that how in the hell can you go from being oppressed your damn selves
to doing the same shit to somebody else?
Yes. And you want us to have sympathy for you? Like, no, I can't take that. And the fact being, as, a person of African descent who's gone through similar shit, with my grandparents not too far off from slavery themselves and having to fight for the little liberation that we get now, like, no, I'm not going to stand for that.
And he's Chuck fucking Schumer. You are one of the wealthiest dudes. You're a fucking sitting senator. And you're oppressed. Like, and listen, is anti-Semitism a very real issue? Of course it is. There's no question about it. But you minimize it when you, try to equate it to anti-Zionism. And frankly, and I've heard a lot of Jewish people say this. Alex Rubenstein was on my show. He said it. I think Indy has said it. Multiple people have said it, that when you equate anti-Semitism to anti-Zionism, you are making the world less safe for Jewish people, because then you are presenting the view, I guess, that all Jewish people are Zionists, and Zionism is a horrific ideology. And it's all that does is make people then not like Jewish people, because you're equating them to, you know what I mean? Like, it's so self-defeating. And when you cry anti-Semitism, when it's not anti-Semitism, you diminish the effectiveness of the word. And we've seen them do that with many words over, really forever. I mean, we've seen them do it with a whole host of things, and they're doing it again. And I don't know. It's ridiculous, but fuck Chuck Schumer.
Yeah.
That's all I got to say about it.
I think, and he kind of went in, like, the first few minutes of his speech, he kind of went into, I think, to kind of justify his actions, like, oh, like, when Trump was president, like, I was against the Muslim ban and, like, all this kind of bullshit. I'm like, fuck you. That doesn't make the case for you that you're basically committing, or at least complicit in, genocide now. So fuck Trump. Yeah, that's a given. But fuck
Trump too.
Even more so, because and then just something I do want to add, and shout out to Crab, who tweeted this out over the weekend. Like, apparently there was a protest of sorts at a high school in Queens, New York. Like, they saw I guess it's one of their teachers who went to a pro-Israel rally in the area at some point. So basically they scared her off, and like did a whole protest in the school to the point where even Eric Adams had to kind of speak on that. And I believe Chuck Schumer invited this teacher because now she's so scared and like whatever. Like, I believe Chuck Schumer invited her at this thing. And I'm kind of like, okay, so you're going to have her come on, but you can't have the parents of the children who got shot. One may not even walk again, kind of come up, to your speech either. And Chucky Boy, you were at that pro-Israel Zionist rally in DC a couple of weeks ago, but I have not seen you make an effort to go into any pro-Palestinian protests that's been happening all over the world. So it just kind of it just looks fake as hell. It just looks I'm just kind of over that. But but it's just like you can't say that you are, like against Islamophobia when you haven't necessarily made an effort to really appeal to the Arab community / Palestinian community in terms of your actions. So but we know him to be like the ultimate Zionist through and through. So I just wanted to talk about that briefly, but just kind of more the hypocrisy in terms of, like
Chuck Schumer.
Yeah.
Hypocrisy is his middle name. He's fuck Chuck Schumer. That's all I have to say about that. It's fuck Chuck Schumer. Okay, let's skip to let's talk about Kyle's article. Kyle has an article here. Let me pull it up first before I start running my mouth. Okay. Kyle has an article out at the Libertarian Institute. I'm talking too fast. I'm sorry. It's out today. He just published it recently. Again, see right here, guys, they're doing their fundraiser. They've raised $5,636. They're trying to get to 60 grand. That money will help pay Kyle so that he can continue to do amazing work. So go libertarianinstitute.org, go make a contribution, $5, $10, $25, whatever you got. They also have cool kickbacks. You can get one of Scott Horton's books or whatever, which by the way, highly recommend all of them. I think personally my favorite is probably Enough Already. I don't know. It's tough to pick a Fool's Errand's really good too. I don't know. It's hard to pick a favorite, but they're all good. So Kyle, do you want to set this article up and talk about it?
Yeah. So the BBC got their hands on a bunch of satellite imagery and drone footage of Gaza, and they did a bunch of before and after comparisons and tried to calculate the amount of damage. And they found that 100,000 structures in Gaza had been damaged by the Israeli bombing campaign. I think it's the Euromed human rights monitoring group has calculated that Israel has used over 25,000 tons of bombs on Gaza, and it's just absolutely decimated the infrastructure. We've seen it before, but the BBC in this article has tons of pictures of the before and after in entire neighborhoods. Every house is gone. It's unlike anything that I have seen. I mean, even the like 9-month campaign in Mosul or Raqqa, the U.S. bombing campaign there, where, they essentially just took out ISIS going house by house and destroyed a good chunks of that city, is just so much less than what we're seeing here in Gaza. So I think the UN estimates that like 1.7 million of the 2.3 million that live in Gaza have now been made displaced. A lot of those people have been forced to the south of Gaza, but the biggest city there, Khan Younis, has already been damaged 25 or 15% of the structures there. And I think, one thing that maybe even people who are really trying to convey the message that we're trying to convey here don't realize is if Israel's going to commit a genocide in Gaza, it's unlikely that they're actually going to physically kill with their military all 2.3 million people that live there, or even hundreds of thousands of them. But the way that you kill millions of people at a time is by devastating their infrastructure, making sure they have minimal to no access to food, clean water, medical aid, or any kind of electricity, communications, things like that. And then eventually, over the course of a few months or a few years, the population is all going to die off and flee. And so it's I'm very concerned that even if Israel ended their military operation in Gaza tomorrow, that with the same blockade they had before the military invasion on October 7th, it would essentially, over the course of a couple of years, force everybody in Gaza to either flee or die. And so just the amount of devastation there is, I think, at this point equal to an ethnic cleansing campaign where, you know, maybe their last goal isn't to kill every Palestinian, but they want them gone. Yeah. And, you know, if they die, I think in a way, all the better. Misty, that map you have up there for anybody who's listening is like a heat map of all the destruction and all the places that have been bombed. And it's when you look at the populated areas of Gaza, they've bombed it all.
Yeah,
so much of it, hospitals, universities, and also there's an article, and my colleague at antiwar.com, Dave DeCamp, just wrote up this, so everybody should head on over and check it out. It's from 972 magazine. It's an Israeli outlet, and they openly admit that they are killing civilians. They say, you know, this is a target that we want to hit. They also say there's certain targets that they want to hit: universities, hospitals, schools, things like that. And they are just laying absolute waste to Gaza on purpose because they want the Palestinians out of there forever. And you know, when this first happened, we had American politicians for calling to turn Gaza into a parking lot, and Israel is making that happen. And you can't think of anything worse to do to 2.3 million people than to just devastate where they live. No plan for where they're going to go or what they're going to do, and is horrific. Just
and another reminder that half of the population is children. Half. That means over 1 million children. All that red space that you see there on the screen, kids. And for me, and I've talked about this on my show, I've talked about it on Twitter, I cannot stop thinking about the people buried under the rubble. I can't imagine being a child or a baby and your home is bombed and you are then stuck under the rubble. I can't think of a more horrific death than to be buried under the rubble, stuck, no way for them to get you out. They have no access to heavy machinery. I've seen videos of fathers desperately trying to dig his kids from underneath the rubble with his bare fucking hands. And they have no capability of getting these kids out of there, getting these people out of there, humans, adults, whatever, it doesn't matter. And then you are just left there to die, a very slow and painful death. And it is unbelievable to me that this is happening in front of everybody. This is not like, there's lots of shitty things that happen on a daily basis all around the globe, right? This is happening on center stage. Everybody's paying attention to this. We have video after video after video of the devastation. We have unbelievably courageous journalists on the ground in Gaza who are doing their very best to get information out to the world, despite the fact that they know they are being targeted, not just them, also their families. And I'll say it, they're being targeted. I have no question about that in my mind. You may disagree. I think they're being targeted. And it's kind of like what Kyle said. It's they're very purposefully targeting certain infrastructure, hospitals, communications, journalists. There's a reason for that. They want to be able to commit this stuff, commit these crimes, war crimes, crimes against humanity, without being watched. So they're killing a bunch of journalists, and they want to, as Kyle just said, they want to be able to kill off all of the Palestinians in whatever way they can. And if they devastate the medical infrastructure, there's tons of injuries. Where are these people supposed to go? There is nowhere to go. And the devastation that is being wrought on Gaza is, I have never seen anything like it, especially in such a short amount of time. As I think it was Kyle said earlier, more people dead in 2 months than the entirety of the 2 years of the Ukraine situation. I mean, this is insane. And again, most of them are women and children. I would say just under half, I think, are kids. Although, to be fair, we don't have accurate numbers. We don't have an accurate death toll. It's impossible. Again, thousands of people are buried under rubble. There's no way for them to account for those people. Lots of people are just missing. They have no idea what's going on. And also the communications are so, they've been completely shut down. And so different districts of Gaza are unable to communicate with each other. So I think the death toll it's gonna, it's almost too much to bear. It is horrific what's happening. It's unbelievable. You have anything, Colin?
I mean, what more can be said? I mean, it's just, and this is what we're funding.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's the thing that I think about. My tax dollars are going towards this.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't feel good about it. And more importantly, it's like, we voted for this.
I didn't.
Well, I didn't either, but other people did. But it's like, but, you know, voting has a price. And it's the idea of like, you know, it just makes me go back to think about like, you know, oh, we have to vote for Biden because Trump is going to lead us into war. Well, Biden's brought us into two. So like, at least Trump didn't bring us into anything new, although you can argue came very close. But, you know, and no end in sight. And especially given, and again, how powerful AIPAC is, who knows how long this is going to go on, you know, and to think that even if Trump, and I don't want to make no mistake, like if Trump were to be president right now, like he's bought by the AIPAC as well. So it's not like,
he would be no better.
Any better under Trump either. So it's like, you know, it's just lose all around for the Palestinian community. And I just feel
helpless,
but more importantly, like the people who have the gall to say, vote for Biden anyway, like,
go fuck yourself. How about that?
Like, I wish I could say more words, but I'm Care Bear. Like, I actually do.
I'll say it for you. Go fuck yourself. Go fuck yourself.
It just reminds me of like when Biden said, if you don't vote for me and you ain't black. And I was just kind of like, well, I wasn't going to vote for you anyway. But
I guess you're not black, Colin.
And like everybody was just kind of like, no, you got to. And people held their tongue, you know, and did it anyway. And like, but the idea that you're trying to make people who possibly lost their family through war crimes on our dollar, and you're saying that Biden is the better option, like, or friending people, Trump is going to give another Muslim ban. Like, fuck this country. I'd rather be banned from this country than have my family.
Well, that's Jimmy Dore used to say, which is worse, bombing Muslims where they live or banning them at the airport? I think banning them at the airport is far better. I mean, listen, neither option is great, but I would much rather you just ban them at the airport than to bomb them. I mean, I think that's crazy.
Wants to come to this godforsaken country anyway, so whatever. Like, I'd rather do that than have like my family slaughtered.
Yeah.
So,
and listen, Trump fucking sucks. I hate Donald Trump. I mean, obviously, I'm a Julian Assange supporter and he plotted to murder him and had him arrested and all that good stuff. I don't like Donald Trump, but everything they tried to fearmonger you about with Trump, Joe Biden is that and worse. Right. Period. I don't care. You can come for me if you want. Joe Biden is worse than Donald Trump, period. They both suck. They're both owned and operated by the exact same people. To be fair, it's not really Joe Biden. I don't think my guy has a clue what's going on around him. He's not making any decisions. But they tried to fearmonger you about Donald Trump, and everything that they said that he was going to do, Joe Biden has done tenfold.
Right.
So fuck them both. And I'm not voting for any of these.
I mean, I would argue that if Trump were president, that people will be more activated and more engaged than they are right now.
100%.
So in that regard, it's not to say I don't want Trump, but I'd rather have him in that sense of like, you'll be on him for if he poops, you know? Yeah. But like, Biden has been president for the past 3 years, and like, people are trying their best to try and justify, well, he did this shit and did this. I'm like, I don't give a shit, because I haven't seen anything different in my personal life that will make me, and especially given the communities that I work for, like, I can't go to like the low income areas in DC and be like, you have to vote for Biden because, like, what am I going to say? like, what am I going to tell them to make their case?
Yeah.
So fuck off with that.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, we're running out of time. I want to get to Sam Husseini. I just had Sam on my show on TNT. Oh my God, I was so nervous. I don't get nervous a lot anymore. I used to get nervous for every single show. And in fact, if you want, I don't like listening to myself, but my very first show ever, was March 15th, 2022. Keith McHenry was my very first guest, and I'm almost certain that you can hear my heartbeat through that whole interview. I was so scared. But I get nervous with certain people, and I love Sam Husseini. I think he's a fantastic journalist. He's doing great work. If you don't know who he is, you might recognize him from his various appearances in the White House press briefing room, where he calls out the assholes that are standing up there lying to him. And it's great. It's fucking fantastic. But Sam has been calling for anybody out there. There's like 149 countries, I think, who could possibly do this. And he's calling for them to invoke the Genocide Convention. So go to Sam's Substack, Husseini.substack.com. He gives you all of the information about this, talks about what it is. It's different from, so there's the ICC, which is completely neutered, is useless, right? Completely useless. But this is the International Court of Justice. It's also called the World Court. And they have, in fact, in the past ruled against Israel. So there's some potential here for something to happen. Multiple other journalists, as he mentions here, have been talking about this. Also, the UN whistleblower was recently just on Gray Zone with Max, Craig Mockber. And also one of my favorites, Craig Murray, has also written about this as well. But any country, any of the 149, I guess, 149 states who are in a party to this genocide convention can invoke this. And I think we talked about it today. I think that it would be better if it were multiple countries. I think obviously there's safety in numbers because I think generally speaking, there's a lot of countries speaking out against what Israel's doing. But I think that a lot of people are afraid because you're going up against the United States and Israel, and they will come for you. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So, but if there's, I think if just one did it, I think numerous other countries would join. I really do. And so if you go to Sam's article, if you want all of the information, I'm not going to go through it all because we're running out of time, but he goes through all of the information. And then at the end, he offers actions. I am a person of action. I'm an activist. I like doing things. Sam and I talked about this. I feel very helpless and hopeless, but I feel better when there's something I can do. And so there's lots of things you can do. Obviously, visiting protests. You can contact representatives. You can, obviously, we need to continue to pressure the U.S. Obviously, we are Americans. It's kind of our duty. It sounds corny, but it really is our duty to, as Colin said, we're funding this shit. You know what I'm saying? So it's really incumbent upon us to hold these assholes to account as much as we can. I realize it's difficult. Our system is fucked. We have very little power, but whatever power we do have through protest and through boycotts, whatever the fuck you can do it. And everybody can do something. Everybody can do something. And then at the end here, Sam also includes emails for the various different UN for the different countries. So especially countries who have already been vocally critical of what Israel is doing, and there are many. I think, let's see, I think Venezuela, obviously Syria, Russia. There's Bolivia, a bunch. Yeah, Bolivia. I think Colombia, Belize, maybe. There's a bunch who have been vocally critical. So those are the ones that we want to contact. Those are the ones we want to lean on because they're already kind of there, and we just need to kind of give them a push to do what's necessary here. I mean, y'all, a genocide, a literal genocide is playing out on the world stage and nobody's doing anything about it. It's fucking crazy.
Well, the people that we want them to do something aren't doing anything. There are plenty of people who are trying on the ground. So
for sure. No, I mean, yeah, obviously there are people in the streets, but I mean, people who have actual power, nobody's doing anything.
Right.
Nobody. It's fucking nuts. It's crazy to me. I think that the Arab states are considering their options. I think they're treading carefully. This obviously has the potential to blow up into something tremendously catastrophic.
Yeah.
So I think that they are.
Well, not just them. I think also Russia, China, especially.
For sure.
Like, they are like, that will set off World War III right here. So I think. Yeah. Really, we're just, as you say, Misty, we're fucked either way. But I don't see unless and I will say this, I don't believe in this ceasefire. I think that's kind of the compromise position. I believe in divesting from Israel completely. Like, that's what people should be calling for. And no one has been saying that, but I will continue saying that until I lose my voice. But the idea of, even like with a ceasefire, the fact that people have just been, and like even like on the ground, just people like saying no ceasefire has been extremely but
fuck your humanitarian pause, fuck your ceasefire. It's free Palestine. That's what it is. It's free fucking Palestine. That's what it is. Obviously, ceasefire is fine. It keeps people from dying for a few days. But Israel has already said, as soon as the ceasefire is over, they're back to killing people. They're back to maiming and slaughtering people. They got no issue. So it really does nothing. But I mean, you're just letting Israel go take a nap. You know what I mean? Get a little break. Have some milk and cookies before they start murdering people again. It's fucked. I don't get it. No, it's free Palestine. It is free Palestine. That is the goal. Ceasefire is fine, but no, that's not. It needs to be free Palestine. Okay. All right. I don't want to keep you guys any longer. I promise you I'd only keep you for an hour. I'm getting fired up too. And now I'm not going to be able to go to sleep despite the fact that I'm exhausted because now I'm fired up. All right. Colin, what do you have coming up? Where can people find you, follow you, all that stuff?
You can find me, you can find me on Twitter at obona_.colin. Most of you are familiar with where I'm at, but then you could find me here on INN with Reef on INN News, generally every Wednesday nights at 9 Eastern. That's it. And then obviously you can follow us on Twitter at Get Indie News, or all of our information, with including all of our other colleagues on the network are also there, if you also want to look for me there as well.
Cool. All right, Kyle, what do you have going on?
Yeah, so I am the opinion editor of antiwar.com and the news editor at the Libertarian Institute. With those two jobs, I put out my show, Conflicts of Interest, a daily news roundup at the Institute, and I write news articles almost every day of the week at either antiwar.com or the Institute. They all end up getting published on at least linked to on the front page of antiwar.com. So that's like the best one-stop shop for my articles is antiwar.com. And follow me on Twitter at Kyle _. I try to keep up with all the news going on, especially right now, everything with Israel. It's all just so horrific. And I really appreciate you hosting this, Misty, and Colin for joining. I think these kind of things are really important right now, because there isn't a candidate, right? RFK Jr., Biden, Trump are all going to compete for who could possibly be worse on this issue. And so, these kind of broad coalitions are maybe going to be the one thing that can move the needle or force something to happen to at least get the U.S. to pretend to want to restrain Israel a little bit. Because without that, it could be, I mean, really, if you look at the actual textbook definition of genocide, we're probably already there. Mm-hmm. I think people's conception of genocide, which is, the Holocaust death camp kind of thing, I think we're getting very close to that. And so, the restraint is very, very important right now. And any calls for it coming from any direction is really important. We just got to keep, getting loud about it.
Yes, 100%. And thank you both for coming. And I think that there's, in my opinion, I know there's been a lot of hand wringing about whether or not genocide is the proper word to use. It is.
Yes.
It absolutely is. There's no question about it. Sam and I talked about it tonight. There's you don't have to have the complete slaughter of Palestinians for it to count as a genocide. First of all, there just needs to be intent. I showed you the thread. There's been intent for decades. They've been talking about this for a very long time. They've never been shy about it. And now they are just acting it out. This is the final solution, as they like to talk about. Yes, it is absolutely a genocide. There's really no debate. I don't know why that's even up for discussion. And I think that, yes, Kyle, you guys both know, I am hugely passionate about coming together with people that maybe I don't agree with all the time when it matters, and this matters. So be a grown up, put your bullshit differences aside. I don't care where you stand on economics. I don't give a shit where you stand on abortion. I don't care where you stand on any other issue. If you are willing to speak out against what Israel is doing to the people of Palestine, then let's join together. Let's work on this thing together, because we need the numbers. Obviously, we're going up against, as Colin has said multiple times, a very, very powerful Israeli lobby, and they're bitches, the United States government. So we need everybody to come together on this. And so these kind of conversations and this kind of coming together on these issues where, we have common cause, I think are vital. Okay. I don't think I have anything else. Did I forget anything, guys? Do you think?
So.
No?
I don't think
okay.
so.
There's going to be more of these. We're going to have different members of antiwar.com and INN popping in and out. I'll probably be a fairly regular fixture. Sorry. But again, I'm the floater. So I'm kind of trying to bring those two worlds together. So I'm not sure when the next one will be. I'm not sure who will be on it, but just keep your eyes on the INN Twitter page. There will be announcements there and all of that stuff. Thank you to everybody for tuning in. Please make sure you go to Sam Husseini's article and take some action in some way, shape, or form, whatever it is you feel comfortable doing. If you're not like somebody who's cool about going out and protesting for whatever reason, I get it. It puts you at some risk. I understand. But there's other things that you can do. So whatever you can do, please go do it. The people of Palestine really need all of us to stand up for them and fight back against this bullshit. It's unbelievably horrific, and there's no sign of it slowing down. So thanks again for everybody tuning in, and we will announce the next one whenever we got it figured out, and we will see you then. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.